What if I told you every religion on earth has the same core truth? What if the deepest truths weren't Christian, Hindu, Buddhist, or Muslim, but just simply truth? I am the Stress Less Guru, caring for the mind, the body, and the soul. In today's episode, we're going to be discussing topics concerning the mind, the body, and the soul. Over the course of this series, we're going to be looking at the 10 core universal truths most religions have in common. Throughout this series, we're going to be looking at what lies beneath the cultural packaging, the institutional politics, and the us versus them tribal mentality that's plagued humanity for thousands of years. These truths are pointing to the same reality, to the human condition, to consciousness. Throughout this course, we're going to learn how to live well and how to die well, how to truly maximize what it means to be a human and get the most out of the human experience. These are patterns that can be found when you study the text and the traditions of these various religions. It's what we find when you look at the mystics and the monks, the ones that have not only grown up with that faith, but in some very deep personal way been touched by those traditions. What we're about to talk about over this series might be uncomfortable or go against some of the things that you believe, and that's okay. Stick with me. You might actually learn not only more about you and what you believe, and sometimes why you believe what you believe, but why some of these things aren't taught more than they are, and you might even learn something about other cultures as we're going through and find out those cultures aren't as different as you may have been led to believe. So who is this series for? All right, let's talk about that. So this series is for the person that went to church, to temple, mosque, synagogue, and grew up in those traditions. But after following all the rules, saying the prayers, you still don't feel like you're getting from those faiths what you should be. This is for the person that walked away from organized religion, maybe because you got hurt, but still wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning wondering if there's more out there than what you've been taught, what you believe, but you just didn't know where to find those other answers. This is for the person that doesn't have religion, doesn't have a faith, but is curious, wants to know more, feels like there's something bigger, something they just don't understand yet, and is looking for a starting point or some more answers. This is for the person that's still practicing their faith, but is curious enough to ask, is this really the only true faith out there? If you've ever thought that maybe we're all on the same mountain, but spread out, so our views are vastly different, same mountain, different views, this is for you. Since this is the introduction video to the series, I want to talk about what it is that we are doing here. What I'm going to be doing is called comparative mysticism. Another name for this is perennial philosophy, which essentially is the study of mystical and contemplative traditions across religions to find common grounds. Now, this isn't to say that all religions are the same. They absolutely are not. They have different histories, different holy texts, different prophets. They have different rituals and practices. The core teaching behind all of these traditions is the same. And that's what I want to get into. When you step away and start to study things like Christian mysticism, for instance, you find that those mysticists start sounding like Sufi mystics and Hindu sages, Buddhist masters. A lot of what we're going to be discussing comes from the perspective of these contemplative streams. So the monks, the saints, the mystics. Some of what I say may be in opposition of what you believe or what you've been taught, and that's okay. Institutions preserve and they create community, and there's a lot of value in that. However, these religious institutions also tend to calcify, to politicize, sometimes losing sight of what their original core teachings were. When I talk about Christian teachings in this series, most of what I'm talking about is going to be coming from Christian mystics or the teachings of Jesus. I'm not really going to be dwelling a lot on the dogmas or what modern church councils have put into the doctrine. When I'm talking about Islamic teachings, I'm going to be going more into the Sufi territory as we go through our discussion. As far as going into Buddhism, I'm going to be working with contemplative practices more than the actual doctrinal discussions that one might have when discussing Buddhism. That's the lens I'm going to be using as we go through the next 10 videos in this series. Over the next 10 episodes, we're going to be looking at one universal core truth per episode. Each episode, we're going to be deep diving into the scriptural support, the mystical testimony, the practical application across several different faiths. We're not only going to be looking at the big religions that we're familiar with, we're also going to be looking at indigenous and earth religions. We're going to dive into pagan religions and mythologies. We're also going to be looking at African traditions as well, trying to get as broad a picture of these universal truths as we possibly can. As we go through this series, we're going to be looking at 3 things specifically in each episode. First, we're going to be looking at what is the truth and why does it appear everywhere. Second, how did institutions take and corrupt or change this truth for their own personal power or control? And third, what does this truth mean for you and your daily walk? Not just in a philosophical, abstract way, but an actual practical application. What can you take from this teaching and put it into daily life? Spiritual truth isn't just something that we need to learn from an intellectual standpoint. The truths that we're going to be uncovering and talking about are things that we need to embody and embrace and truly make them part of who we are. By the end of this series, I hope that you see religion differently, not as a bunch of competing groups, but as different languages, all speaking the same thing. By the end of this, what I want you to have is a framework to understand your own faith, but not just that, to be able to see a spiritual path in front of you that doesn't require you to pick one tribe over another, one belief system over another, and then demonize those who don't believe what you believe, as is so common in religion as we know it today. A note on inclusion and my personal limits. Not only am I pulling from Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Hinduism, Buddhism, but I'm also diving into Sikhism and Taoism, Jainism, indigenous traditions, African spirituality, and other more niche faiths and religions as well. But if I missed something, let me know in the comments, because I'm trying to learn just like we're all trying to learn. So if you've got more information, let me know. I'll take a look at it. This series isn't the final word on anything that we're discussing. It's really meant to be a conversation starter. So take the topic, build on it. Use what we were discussing to do your own research. Come back and let's have that conversation. I'm trying to create a community here of like-minded people who can help us find all of the little pieces to the puzzle and compile them together. I spent a good deal of all of my childhood and a good deal of my early 20s in the Christian faith, Baptist, Pentecostal, non-denominational, and there were some major blinders put on me by that faith. It wasn't until I was able to step away and start looking into what other people believed that I was able to say, hey, hang on a second. That's actually something that's taught in my faith. You're teaching the same thing. And then from those experiences that I had, I started making notes, started doing my research, and started really piecing together what were the universal core truths all of the faiths of the world that I had access to shared in common. Okay, so I'm going to pull up my notes here, put them up on the screen, but I'm going to read them to you. We'll talk about what those 10 core truths are. So, kind of a sneak peek of what the rest of the series is going to be. The first core truth is the inner journey is the real one. We're going to be looking at why every tradition tells you to look within rather than what is out there. The second universal core truth is that truth is beyond words. Why the deepest truths can't be captured in words alone. The third universal core truth, all beings are connected. This is going to be looking at why you are not a separate island, but rather a wave in an ocean. The next universal core truth, there is light in everyone. We're talking about why every person carries sacred potential. Next in the series is love is the highest law. Not soft sentimentality, but fierce, active compassion as the measure of spiritual maturity. Next, freedom through letting go. Why freedom comes from loosening your grip, not tightening it. Next, you must die before you die. This is the metaphorical dying of the ego, of the self, before you can truly awaken. Next is suffering is the teacher. We're discussing what you do comes back to you. This is the karma, basically. Looking at why your actions shape the reality around you and how, if you're not happy with the reality that you're currently living, you have the power to alter that reality through what you're putting out into the world. Finally, the last one here is service over belief. And we'll be discussing why what you do matters infinitely more than what you claim to believe. It's the whole actions speak louder than words. So those are going to be the 10 core teachings. They're on the screen so you can see them all quickly. And that is what we'll be discussing over the next 10 episodes in this particular series. All I'm wanting to do is open your eyes and expand your mind to what others believe and more of what and why you believe what you believe. And look at some of the things that have been hidden from you in your own faith. Many people find that comparative mysticism or perennial philosophy makes them better Christians, Muslims, Hindus, Buddhists, fill in the blank. It's all meant to help strengthen your personal journey, help you find your personal journey. You may find that the faith that you are in, the tradition that you're following, just isn't cutting it. And maybe it's time to walk away from those rigid structures that you've grown up with and step out for yourself and actually have that personal one-on-one connection with divinity that we are all seeking. If, like me, you've left organized religion, then hopefully this series gives you a framework for a spiritual life. It doesn't require you to sign up for any kind of tribalism, for any kind of dogma or institutions that have any kind of harmful messaging where we look at others as the opposition, but rather with these universal truths, we see everybody as one. And that's really, in my opinion and belief, what all of this is about anyway. We are all supposed to be one, but every turn there's something or somebody trying to divide everybody else. And it's time that that ends because things aren't getting better. They're just getting harder and they're getting worse. You can be spiritual without being religious. You can take these truths, put them into practice, and have a huge influence on the world around you, making things both positive for those around you and for you as well. So take a breath, open your heart, and let's start on this journey together. The very first truth that we're going to be looking at in the next episode is the inner journey is the real one. Until then, I am the Stress Less Guru, caring for the mind, the body, and the soul. Stress less and live more.